we talked about this yesterday, but Kristen Stewart was recently on the cover of Rolling Stone. And it seems like a trend now that artistic directors for these photo shoots are trying to make celebrities look as ugly as possible, specifically trying to make women look more masculine and make men look more feminized. And I just posted a tweet with that cover of Kristen Stewart and then another cover of Cillian Murphy on GQ, where he looked like a lesbian wine ant. And I captioned it, masculinize the feminine, feminize the masculine. That's all I said to direct the ire of every they, them on Twitter instantly. They are so mad at me. And I got replies like, I know you're just rage farming, but at some point it has to be exhausting to be so incredibly fragile. Another one said, Kristen is hot, Cillian is just too old to be dressing like that. And another one said, Gen Z right-wingers are going to lose their minds when they find out about rock and roll. They just so desperately want the left to still be cool, and it's not.
And they imagine you didn't know who David Bowie was.
They're sending me photos and videos of Prince, of David Bowie, of Boy George, of like glam rock, and I'm like, yeah, it was also cringe when they did it too. But at least they were being original.
Here's the photos that we're talking about, of course.
Yes, this is Kristen Stewart on the cover, and grabbing her jock strap.
It's just so gross. And I've said this before on the show. I'm so entirely over ugly as an aesthetic. I'm so entirely over postmodern deconstruction of beauty. It's all been done. It's tired. This is not the first unattractive looking person that we've seen on the cover of a magazine. It's just exhausting. We've done androgyny. It's just done. It's so done. Everything, all of this stuff is done.
Yeah, and I think for at least the individuals, there's something deeper at play. Like Kristen Stewart or the actor formerly known as Ellen Page. These are naturally gorgeous women who are doing everything in their power to make themselves look ugly and look masculine because they don't want to look appealing to men. And that's a deeper issue within yourself that you need to resolve. I don't think that that should be celebrated. And one of the quotes from Kristen Stewart in this interview is, I want to do the gayest effing thing you've ever seen in your life. If I could grow a little mustache, if I could grow an effing happy trail and unbutton my pants, I would.
It's just
why?
It's just try hard.
Why do you want to be a man so badly? Like, why is it that like being a woman is not good in your opinion?
What's funny is like they imagine that if they could become men, they would still be. They don't realize that they wouldn't be treated with the speciality that they're
you look at that trans man, that trans man that was bawling his eyes out because, oh man, being a man means you get treated like a man. Guess what? Just because women think that every man that's ever wronged them is their dad or the president doesn't mean that every man is your dad or the president. Feminists act like every man in the world is this ultimate power when most men throughout history have been the garbage man and gotten walked on and broken their bodies trying to support their family and their wife and their kids. The idea that every man is this powerful thing that has been in positions to oppress all women forever. It's ridiculous. People are people. They're not caricatures.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's like, this is a question that none of these people have ever asked themselves in their lives. Like, why do I want to be a man so bad?
I mean, yeah.
There's no introspection. It's just getting celebrated. And obviously, if you are a woman and you're doing everything in your power to counteract your nature, especially as a woman who is naturally as beautiful as Kristen Stewart is, there's something wrong in your brain or in your emotions that you need to resolve. It's not for us to resolve for you. And I wanted to read this other reply. These people are always going on about how trans people are actually homophobic and promoting gender roles based on stereotypes. Yet every time they see somebody who identifies with their birth sex doing a little gender bending, they lose their minds. How do you feel about that? Are we hypocritical? Because they're saying this is the same thing as being a tomboy.
It's not the same thing as being a tomboy.
I think that's really intellectually dishonest.
Very dishonest.
Yeah.
This is not the same thing as a girl who's growing up and hasn't learned what it is to be feminine yet,
I
and
mean,
is,
part of it is
playing
also-
baseball or whatever. Like, that's not the same thing as a grown woman saying that she wishes she could grow a mustache.
I mean, a big part of this is also like I don't find the actual act itself to be as interesting as I do find the media's desire to want to perpetuate it onto society. On one hand, you could say that perhaps they just see it as a human interest piece. Look at this celebrity with a large profile who has this unique way of looking at the world, or they would phrase it as unique, right? Obviously, we know that these things are becoming far more common these days, but you wonder why. And we see a lot of it. I mean, we just looked at Megan Fox, who has turned herself into a hyper feminine idea of what it means to be a woman, right? So it's almost like the worst part is like they've destroyed the middle. Like you have to be either a caricature of an extremely feminine woman, or you have to go the complete opposite way and destroy all of your femininity. Why not look for somebody who radiates the beauty of natural femininity right in the middle? That
You have
seems
to
like
be
something worth celebrating.
Either butch or a sex doll.
Yeah.
And obviously both of those options are unappealing to the vast majority of women.
But also for magazines and for these things, look, shock sells. It does. For the most part, shock sells. I don't know if this is selling magazines. I'm just saying that people find the circus freaks of society more interesting than people right in the middle. You want to succeed
But I think the problem, in regards to your shock thing, I think the problem is it's hard to shock people anymore. Or at least the way that you're allowed to shock people.
I'm just saying that like they're not going to put just a lady on the cover in a floor-length dress making cookies on Rolling Stone. It's just not going to happen. And look, this is echoed in all forms of this content too. Like if you want to survive, if you want to make content on YouTube a lot of the time, if you want to be popular on Twitter or any of these things, you're not going to get there by displaying super nuanced and opinions. You're going to get there by being hyperbolic, over the top, and playing to the outskirts. That's how
I'm not sure, because I don't think that celebrities gender bending is shocking anymore.
Not at all.
Maybe you could say it was shocking when someone like David Bowie wore makeup, but that was decades ago.
They're 20 years behind the times, and we know that.
We're way past the point when a man wearing a dress is shocking.
But I'm saying they're 20 years, they don't, just like they don't realize that they're the establishment now, they don't realize that modern society isn't shocked by this. So they think how often do they talk about how they're breaking down barriers every time they let a woman put a superhero costume on, as if that hasn't been going on for 20 years.
That is kind of funny. Like,
They don't get it.
That's the whole like, oh, we're breaking down barriers, and it's literally stuff that's been broken down like literally in the 80s or in the 70s.
Exactly.
Which I also,
which is part that
as a
goes back to what I
social
was saying,
conservative,
you know?
I object to that anyway, but I wasn't
Fair enough.
alive then. I'm just pointing it out now because this is the newest example of it. And I think especially when it comes to the men in Hollywood who feminize themselves, it presents itself as an opportunity for self-promotion. Like Ezra Miller, for instance. I definitely think Ezra Miller got more opportunities in the entertainment industry because he was starting to present himself as androgynous because that's
sellable
edgy
identity.
and that's marketable. And then Harry Styles wore a floor-length gown on the cover of Vogue back in, I believe, 2020.
And this is the more nefarious desire to just destroy masculinity as a whole. There's a really interesting article when Kumail Nanjiani mentioned that it was no longer about toxic masculinity, it was about traditional masculinity. They don't even they're not even keeping the mask on anymore. They don't even care about toxic masculinity. They want to get rid of any form of masculinity.
Well, men are bad.
Men are bad.
That's the long and short of it, honestly, so.
Yeah, I think the goal isn't really gender bending, it's abolishing gender altogether.
Yeah.
Until everyone just becomes an androgynous blob.
Well, so I don't want to get too in depth on this because there's a buddy of mine made a video that's coming out pretty soon. He talks about rat utopia, and if you are familiar with rat utopia, then you know. But that really is
because we're super comfortable.
Significant parallels, and it'll be out. I think next week. It's his YouTube page is What If Alt Hist. It's at What If Alt Hist, HIST, like history. Give him a follow. He puts out great videos. And you definitely want to keep an eye out for the Rat Utopia video, which is coming. It's great. And once you hear it and hear the parallels, hear what happens to the rats in Rat Utopia and the parallels to our society now, it is striking. And seeing as like mammals, mammals are all kind of built the same, right? Like, so even though like your mammals look different and stuff, we're kind of all, we all got boobs and nipples, and most of us got 4 arms or 2 arms and 2 legs and stuff like that. So they're very similar, and our brains are similar as well. There's the mammal or the reptile brain and the mammal brain on top. Humans have the cortex, but the mammal brain is still there. So like all the feelings and emotions and stuff that we feel, like mammals also share. They're very similar. So when you see the conditions in the Rat Utopia and look at the behavior of humans, it's striking and it's frightening. And I know that was a big diatribe, but you got to check it out, the Rat Utopia.
Living in a society that's as comfortable as the one we live in right now. Sure, you're never going to own a home, but you're never at risk. You can go to the grocery store and you're going to find the ingredients you need. God forbid it's 2020 and you can't find toilet paper anywhere. When there is no actual struggle to put yourself through, physical struggle on a daily basis, you will look for ways to make your life more of a challenge or to set yourself apart that way. And that seems to be what's happening.
Well,
here.
for someone like Harry Styles, he gets to wear the dress on the cover of Vogue.
For them, it's even worse. For
There's
them,
a backlash.
It's financially beneficial.
He gets to frame himself as somebody who is marginalized now. Yeah. And then when he accepts the Grammy for Best Album of the Year, he says to the crowd, this doesn't happen to people like me very often.
Give me a break.
People like me, men who paint their nails and wear dresses and act like little girls.
Yeah. We missed a $20 one here from Philip Reed.
Sorry about that.
Says bought a '79 Lincoln Mark V. It waited until I registered it to start looking harder than a desperate Jehovah's Witness. Yippee!
Knocking harder.
Is that what it said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did I say?
Looking.
Oh. Ooh. That's bad. I think for a lot of this is also, it's worse for the celebrities because for what the kids are doing, it's more enshrined in like what their lives are like. A lot of kids are confused. They're trying to make sense of what their life is supposed to be. So they experiment with different identities socially. For celebrities, it's financially beneficial. Mm-hmm. It gets them work. That's worse.
There are other celebrities that don't engage in this behavior, and it doesn't seem like they are at a disadvantage for it.
They don't need to.
But if your talent, if your talent and your work speaks for itself, you don't need to rely on a cheap trick like that.
Exactly.
To get
also,
clicks.
I don't really hold this against Cillian Murphy because he's kind of always been this way, and he's really, really talented.
Well, so is Kristen Stewart pretty much.
But
throughout her whole 20s, basically.
What is Kristen Stewart doing these days? What was the last thing?
Lesbian powerlifting movies.
So yeah, let's go.
What an amazing career.
Yes. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.